Right, let's speak now to Dr. Steve Nolan, lecturer in economics at Liverpool's John Moores University. Good evening, Steve.
Hi, Gordon.
Steve, right, we've heard the politicians there having a bit of a bicker between them, but can you just please explain what's going on here? You know, is this rise in inflation, is it a surprise?
It was a little bit higher than expectations, but only about by 0.1%. The thing is, as you kind of pointed out, a lot of this was driven by the price rises, and we can kind of see them coming in slow motion now with the energy price cap. So they're kind of announced about 2 months in advance. So we knew there was going to be a rise because there'd been a large rise in the cap of about 10%.
And there's another one coming, is there not?
Yeah, there's one due on Friday. Now, the expectation is that that's not going to be as much at all. Round about 1% is what people are predicting. But, it's not going down. And the expectation is over the coming months that it's going to be about this level. So that kind of upward pressure or kind of stable pressure on kind of inflation is around. Like this time last year, it was the energy prices coming down that was driving a lot of the fall in inflation. And we're getting the opposite now.
I mean, Steve, so many of our listeners tonight, you know, this is real for all of us, you know. I've got to remain impartial here as well, but the cost of living in general, you know, what is going on? You know, has it been a brutal time, or are things still getting more expensive?
Well, I mean, things aren't in general getting more expensive. I think energy price levels, they're going to bounce around. They're kind of quite volatile. So they'll go up, they'll go down. We've seen that over the year. But what we're not seeing really, and probably what we won't see, is the prices going down. So we saw kind of a big leap over the last 2.5 years, a kind of real kind of cost of living crisis. Now, inflation's come down. That's the rate of prices going up. But it's not, the prices themselves aren't going down. So those kind of higher prices that we're paying that now, to a certain extent, we're stuck with. And, you know, wages have recovered a little bit, but not enough to kind of combat those big rises we saw back in 2022, 2023. So to a certain extent, we're all a little bit worse off.
So when you take the budget into account then, and all the talk of, you know, how the potential trade taxes imposed by the US will affect us, do you think the cost of living's just going to go up again?
Never say never, and there's a lot of uncertainty in the world at the moment. And, you know, there are some moves within that budget that could put upward pressure on prices. But, you know, the counter of that is the Bank of England. If they are concerned about prices increasing, then they'll put pressure on it by either probably not raising interest rates, but I think what we could say today after kind of the announcement today is like the rate that the rates are going to come down is a bit slower. It was probably a bit slower after the budget. It's probably even a little bit slower now.
Steve, I don't know if you can help us with employment here and how that'll be affected by sort of the national insurance changes in the budget as well. You know, how long will it be before we see figures related to that and how businesses are adapting to the changes and the costs going out?
So it takes a while to feed through, and it's kind of based on lots of different decisions. And one of the things that might happen is kind of hiring that could have happened won't happen. And to a certain extent, that's a counterfactual. The job you didn't get is you don't know about. But there's estimates that ultimately a lot of this effect is actually going to feed through in terms of people's wages to a certain extent. There'll be, when it comes to negotiating your wage next year, your boss has got a good argument. Is that I'd love to give you a pay rise, but I have this extra tax to pay. Ultimately, if inflation's increasing and your level of pay isn't increasing, that's a pay cut.
And Steve, briefly before we let you go, it's quite easy, isn't it, to become hyper-focused on the UK economy and what's affecting us. But how do we figure compared to other countries right now? Are we in a better place or similar place?
Pretty much broadly a similar place at the moment.
Okay, that's exactly the answer I was looking for, Steve. That's all we need. But thanks for your expertise as always, and hopefully we can catch up again soon.
That'd be great, thanks.
There we go, Steve Nolan there, lecturer in economics at Liverpool's John Moores University.